Am I the a-hole stories? Am I the a-hole for not splitting my kids' inheritance with my sister's kids? My mom and dad were not wealthy people. Actually, growing up, the family was lower middle class. In 2008, my parents received notice that the US government was claiming their house and land in eminent domain. My parents received a sizable check that they didn't want to take but had to. Can't fight the feds when you're paycheck to paycheck. I, 52 mil, and my wife offered my parents the basement of our home that we could furnish as a separate home. They were older and wanted to be closer to grandkids, and my dad was closer to a few fishing spots, so they agreed and it worked out well for all of us. I didn't charge anything because they're my parents, and they did more than we could have asked. My mom cooked for the family, which helped my wife and I immensely, while my dad took care of the yard, which he liked to do. A few years ago, my mom and dad went to visit my sister for the holidays to see her and her kids, but my family couldn't go due to work. I didn't hear much of anything, which wasn't odd, until Christmas Eve/day. I reached out but was told we would talk later. Even weirder was that my parents returned home much earlier than expected, and they were upset. My dad explained to me that my sister had been having an affair and her husband was leaving her. Apparently, the youngest girl isn't his either. Terrible situation all around, and everyone blamed my sister, as do I. I felt bad for the little girl though. She was innocent in the whole thing. Unfortunately, both of my parents passed away a few years ago in a close time span, and never really made amends with my sister. My parents were from a different time period and my sister is stubborn. I don't know really, I guess. My mom passed last, and made it clear that she didn't want my sister to get anything, and said to follow the will. It was hard hearing that, to be honest. My parents left majority of their finances to my family, while also leaving a college fund to my sister's oldest daughter. My sister wasn't able to save anything for her youngest daughter, and had asked me to help her out. My daughters won't be able to stop with just a bachelor's degree and will require more, and I wish to help with that, so I declined. Things got ugly and I apologized again, and brought up the fact that this was all her fault for having an affair on her husband. Had she not done that, this wouldn't be a problem. She countered with, had she not done it, her daughter wouldn't be here, thus I must hate her. My youngest niece recently reached out via Facebook and asked for help, and that it wasn't fair she was being excluded for just being born, and she didn't do anything to anyone. I apologized to her and told her I agreed with her. However, I had my own children to think of. Am I the a-hole here? Edit: I was told add this in. I offered to pay for 2 years of community college. However, both my sister and my niece feel that was a joke. I have since rescinded that offer. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Maybe baby daddy/affair partner should step up and help pay for his daughter. Definitely not the a-hole. Hijacking this top comment because I'm kinda sensitive when it comes to trust fund, but OP, you're doing the right thing, and your kids will thank you for putting their education first. I know I will. Also, it's respectful to follow your mom's dying wish. You're not the a-hole. Never will be under these circumstances. I feel bad for your niece, but she should have known that she's not your responsibility. She could have reached out to her bio dad though. Edit: rejecting your offer to pay for 2 years of community college is a bit of an entitled move too, in my opinion. Definitely not the a-hole in this case. Not the a-hole, but I do feel bad that your younger niece is paying for her mother's bad choices. It's not her fault, but it's not your kid's fault either. This is a mess, but I see nothing wrong with following your mother's dying wishes. Why can't the younger niece reach out to her bio father for help? I would almost wonder if her mom asked her to reach out. Not the a-hole. It was your sister's bad choices that led to this. You might consider telling her what your mother said so they know exactly the reason you got more. The mother was an a-hole to decide one granddaughter didn't matter to her because of the circumstances of her birth. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for convincing my husband to only include our kids in his will? My 43 female husband is in his 70s and has been suffering from a myriad of health problems. Meanwhile, our youngest child is 3 years old and we have a total of 5 kids ranging from 3 to 17. He's pretty much an absentee owner in his business now. His older 3 kids are in their 30s and they all decided not to go to college, but all are employed right now. I will be fine when my husband is gone, because I know how to run his business and our homes are all paid for, but I want my kids to be able to get the independent head start in life, where they can have their own money, and spend or invest it in a way they liked. No offense, but his older kids already had their chance to decide what they want to do with their lives, and I'm sure if they asked my husband, he would have been able to help. However, every time his older three kids tried something, they were adamant that their dad has nothing to do with it, and they generally have a combative relationship with their dad. After his latest health scare, I realized I had to bring up estate matters with my husband. We sat down and talked, and I said that overall, if our kids were to split his assets 5 ways as opposed to 8 ways, that would be more money for themselves, and while it could never replace him if God forbid he wasn't able to guide them into adulthood, it would be more beneficial to them than their siblings whose windows of exploration are gone. My husband said he has always had a strained relationship with his kids. And he's been there enough throughout their childhood, trying to get them to value their education, but they all ended up taking unstable paths. And in the end, that was their doing. More discussion followed, but yesterday, we sat down with his lawyers and had his will amended so that his older 3 kids get a very small lump sum, around $300, leaving our kids and myself as the primary beneficiaries. Am I the a-hole? My husband and I have been the most important people in each other's lives, and I'd do the same for him. Now for the top comments. You're the a-hole. No offense, but his older kids already had their chance to decide what they want to do with their lives, and I'm sure if they asked my husband he would have been able to help. My husband said he has always had a strained relationship with his kids. Yeah, well, I imagine being a teenager and seeing your 50-something father shack up with a 25-year-old, and basically start a whole new family might lead to some strain. Not to mention she is actively trying to make things worse. OP, you're the a-hole. You're the a-hole. You're 30 years younger than him, and just convinced him to cut his kids that aren't yours out of the will. Everything about this sounds shady. I truly don't mean to sound offensive, but to have a 3-year-old with someone in their 70s. Real convenient she's now convinced him to change his will. Info. No offense, but his older kids already had their chance to decide what they want to do with their lives. What did you do with your life? Marry a rich guy 30 years older than you? Yeah, the cheek of this woman, how freaking entitled. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my cousin what our family were saying about his wife, and causing him to cut everyone off financially? My uncle had a kid from an affair who he abandoned to the system. My grandmother found out when he was 12 and took him in. This was a huge scandal in not only our family, but also our social circle, because everyone is all about appearances and protecting the family legacy. If I'm being honest, my family weren't very nice about my cousin. I remember when he first came to live with our grandparents, my own mother told me not to socialize with him too much in front of outsiders, so he doesn't ruin my reputation. I was 8. When he graduated, the family didn't want him involved in the family business because of his parentage, and also because he was pretty closed off, and was only close to our grandparents and no one else in the family. So, our grandfather gave him some money to start something of his own. The family business hasn't been doing so well for a long time, but my cousin is doing better than ever. Despite everything, he's been financially helping all of us for a few years now. Recently, our grandparents told everyone he was married and expecting a baby. This was a huge shock to the family. Our grandfather admitted he suspects our cousin got her pregnant by mistake and chose to do the right thing, based on a few conversations he had with him before he announced his marriage. My family immediately cyberstalked his wife, and they said some awful things about her, and everyone was complaining that he could have done so much better. My dad was even encouraging everyone to make things hell for her so she leaves. I told my cousin what they said. I'd like to say I did it for selfless reasons, but I didn't. He's paying for my tuition, after my parents refused to help since I dropped out the first time, and based on his personality, I doubt he's going to be very forgiving once they start this crusade against his pregnant wife. Well, he cut everyone off except me and our grandparents. He never told anyone it was me, but since everyone is floundering trying to figure out what they're going to do now and I'm not, it didn't take much for them to figure out I was the snitch. Now my family are angry at me and calling me all sorts of names. So, am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. They never accepted him as a family member. If they never accepted him, why do they deserve his help? They don't. They were mooching off him and only wanted his money, they didn't care about treating him like family. You were right to let him know exactly how they felt about him and his pregnant wife. You seem to actually care and accept him as family, so it's not selfish to let him know. He may be helping you with college, but you care and treat him well. You have accepted him as family, good job. Not the a-hole. The biggest and best indicator that you're not the a-hole is precisely because what you said below. Now my family are angry at me and calling me all sorts of names. Your family is messed up, so what they say is wrong, is most certainly what's right and decent. OP's whole family, except the grandparents, is the reason God created the middle finger. Not the a-hole. Stick with the grandparents who've proven they'll stand by their grandchildren, like they did with your cousin. And your cousin, who has done things out of the kindness of his heart, when these people have been nothing but awful. Get the hell out of your parents' sphere of influence as soon as you can. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for calling the police on my daughter's fiancé? I'm a single dad of 2 girls. Megan 23, and Zoe 17. I'm doing well financially. Note I'm not rich. In fact, I raised my girls under tough circumstances, but I made sure they'd everything they needed. Megan is engaged. They've been saving for the wedding for months now, but they're struggling. I got Megan a car when she was 18 that she hasn't been able to fix because of rent, saving for the wedding, daily expenses, etc. I understand that cheap cars require constant maintenance, but it was a great gift for her, especially since she wanted to be independent. Zoe's 18th birthday is next month. I got her a Hyundai that cost me $5,000. It runs perfectly. This is the first car Zoe owns. She has no experience in driving, so I wanted to get a car with less issues. Zoe likes it and can't wait to drive it. The key will be handed to her on her 18th birthday. It's been in the garage for 2 months now. It sure needs cleaning and will be as good as new. Days ago, Megan's fiancé started complaining about needing a car, since Megan's car can no longer run. He said that he was tired of using public transportation to go places, like the hospital and school, and said that they're literally broke because public transportation is expensive. He asked if he could borrow the Hyundai we have in the garage. But I told him no. That is a gift and cannot be given to anybody. I offered to lend him $100 but he refused, saying he will never take money from me. 2 days ago, I returned from work. Zoe was looking upset and worried. I asked what was going on, and she told me Megan's fiancé came and took her car, the Hyundai. I asked her when and she said at 10 a.m., so, he was gone for almost 10 hours. She told me he found the keys in my office and got the car out of the garage. She told him not to take, but he took it. I was mad. I called him, he didn't answer. I called Megan and she was out with friends. I told her fiancé took her sister's car and wasn't answering the phone. Told her he should have never touched it, and that I'd call one more time then go to the police. She said I was overreacting and he'll return it later. I got fed up. At 7 p.m. I called the police, and reported the car stolen. He got picked at 9 and was taken to the station. Megan came home yelling at me, telling me that I just caused her fiancé to spend a night in jail, and that they already took permission from Zoe, but Zoe denied it. I argued with her that I already told him no. Doesn't matter if they took permission. I'm the one who's responsible for the cars, it's not Zoe's yet. I talked to the officers and he got released in the morning. Megan didn't stop calling me an a-hole, saying I overreacted, completely ignoring that this is her sister's gift he took. He wants an apology from me, but I refused to have them come to my house after this. I could tell Zoe felt worried and upset, and clearly couldn't deal with Megan's fiancé's behavior. As a parent I had to do something even if this upsets Megan. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. He ignored your words, went into your home, went into your office, took the keys, ignored your daughter, and stole the car from your garage. He then took it for the entire day and didn't respond to your calls. You had every right to call the cops. Don't let them try to pretend like you're wrong here. Not the a-hole. Inform your older daughter that taking something once you've been explicitly told no, is theft. He stole a car. Tell her to grow up and stop making excuses for her fiancé stealing your car and refusing to give it back, and that rationalizing that away is insane. Not the a-hole, but keep an eye out. They might start unfairly pressuring Zoe. She's young, and it can be hard to say no to pestering older relatives. Yep. Sounds like OP keeping the car keys with him at all times is the short-term solution, and making sure the youngest has the agency and ability to say no if they try to pressure her later on, would help. Not the a-hole. It is your property until you hand it to your daughter, and then it is still technically partially yours. If you're denied it, he had no right to take the vehicle. It sucks to be an adult sometimes and learn consequences to actions. I think you did the right thing and took justified action. You even told your daughter what you would do if you couldn't get a hold of him. She was trying to call you on your bluff, when you weren't bluffing. Not the a-hole. He stole your car. I'm also wondering if it's even insured yet. What would have happened if he had a wreck? Again, not the a-hole. And that's it for this video guys. If you have thoughts to share, leave a comment below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you like this content. I'll catch you in the next one. Good day everyone.